Welcome to the Peak Potential Pursuit podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of individuals who exemplify grit, grace, growth, and gratitude, or as we like to call it, the G4 journey. Prepare to be inspired as we unravel the journeys to unlocking our peak potential. Welcome to episode 3 of Peak Potential Pursuit. We got our first guests on today, AJ and Whitney Hale. So we're going to jump into it. First off, we'll start off. Where do you work? What do you do for a living?
How do you know us?
Why
are you here?
Just tell us a little about you guys.
Go ahead. I'll go after you.
Okay, well, my name is Whitney, and I used to be a real estate agent, and now I work for Donor Connect, which is actually the company that procures organs and transplants in Utah and surrounding regions, which is kind of a full circle moment for me. I kind of manifested this job for myself like a year ago, so I'm super excited about it.
That's cool.
And I go around to high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, and teach about organ donation. And I grew up in Smithfield. I know these guys from school.
Yeah.
I actually knew Brody and Ty before I knew AJ. So.
Yeah, middle school, right? 6th grade.
Yep.
Yeah.
When they brought the elementary schools together. So.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we met AJ 8th grade, right? When we went to North Cache.
Yeah, North
Yeah.
Cache.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. And then I also go to school for social work. So.
Cool.
Finishing that up.
Awesome.
Hopefully soon.
There you
go.
Nice.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm AJ. I just drive truck all day. I just know Ty and Brody from school. We played sports together: baseball, football, basketball. Hung out.
Did a little hunting.
Did a little hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did a little hunting. That's about it. Just a low key dude.
And Whitney's the only one here, I think, that's killed a bear, right? Like, we gotta talk
No,
about
I actually did.
you did?
Yeah, I did.
All right.
Yeah, I actually
Me and
did.
Brody aren't on that list yet. So we're going to get there someday.
Nice. Come on.
Yeah, we need to step it up.
Step it up.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So, we brought AJ and Whitney on. They have a story and experience that will probably tug on some heartstrings. So, I got some tissues over here, so don't ignore us if we get a little emotional, but been friends for a long time, and so AJ and Whitney have a beautiful family, and on the 27th of September in 2017, their lives changed forever. So AJ and Whitney, we'll let you take it from there and tell us your story.
Okay. I forgot to tell you about my other kids. Should I do
Oh,
that
yeah,
right now?
yeah. Introduce your other kids.
Forgot.
Yeah.
We have 4 kids. So we have Carter, who is 15, almost 16. And then Brody is 13. And then Tayzli would be 10. And our little Skyly, she's 5. She's our caboose. And she runs the house. She's funny. She wanted to be here today because she thought she could talk about Tayzli. And we told her no. So she'll be disappointed. But
We
maybe
might bring
next
her on.
time.
Yeah, we'll bring her on the next episode.
Next time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that day is actually September 26th. We just had a normal day. My sister and her boyfriend flew in the night before. So we kind of had like a week of plans and fun we were going to have. Everyone went to school and to work. Tayzli was in preschool, so she wanted to stay home, obviously, and hang out with us. And we were like, no, you have to go to school. And she just kept begging, I want to stay home and ride my horse. And we were like, no, you got to go to school. And then I promise you can ride your horse. So she went to school. My sister and her boyfriend and I all went to Logan and ran errands and got lunch. And then we brought lunch home for Tayzli. And we were sitting there eating, and she just would not eat her food. She was like, I want to go ride my horse. And we were like, okay. So I finally let her go out in the pasture and get her horse, and she brought it out front, and we were brushing it. It's just like a normal day. We did this every day. Like, she loved it. It wasn't anything different or new. Just, we live up in the country, so you can just kind of ride around our neighborhood. There's like some trails and stuff. So just an everyday thing. But she wanted to go. So off they went on a ride, and I sat on the front porch and just waited for him to come back. And the horse was coming back running, but no Tayzli on it. And so I was like, what happened? We tied the horse up and ran down the road, and she was just laying there by herself. There was two ladies on the other side of the road just staring at her. And they were on the phone, and I figured they were on the phone with 911, but I was so mad that they were, like, touching her, helping her. They were just, like, staring at her. So my sister and her boyfriend are both nurses, luckily, and we got there and made sure she was breathing, and she was unconscious, but her heart never stopped, and she was breathing on her own. So we just did everything we could. They were counting breaths and, like, doing all the things they needed to do. There's a doctor, I think he was in the army.
He's a Green Beret doctor.
That's one of our neighbors, so I tried to call him because I knew he could get there faster, but he wasn't home. And a nurse practitioner that lived next to him was home, so she came, but she was super pregnant and couldn't, like, get down on the ground like us very well. And I called AJ, and I don't know if we want to tell your part of all this. Do you want me to?
It don't matter. If you want to, go ahead. I can. Don't matter.
But, like, the bad parts. Like, sorry, you have to cut this.
No, you're good.
Bad parts.
That you were, like, suicidal and stuff through all this, or no?
Oh, I don't care. Sure. You can.
Like,
you
nobody
can
knows
talk about
this story.
Yeah.
The night before, AJ had been going through some really hard things, and he was, like, super suicidal. Like, suicidal ideation we'd been dealing with for a couple months with him. And so I was really worried about him. And so as I called him, I just, like, had this thought that I'm going to lose them both. Like, I can't tell him his little girl's going to die or she's not okay. I just felt like it would end him, and I was terrified. So I called him, and I'll let you tell your part of it.
So at the time, I had a business, hauling just hauling gravel. I was about 20 minutes away in a gravel pit when Whitney called me, and I knew something was up. Sorry. When she called me, she said something's wrong with Tay. He got in an accident. So I knew something was really bad. So I called 911 in my dump truck, and I said, I got there, and the operator answered, and I said, hey, just so you know, I'm not going to follow the speed limits. I'm in a black dump truck heading north. I'm going to Petersboro, so if there's a cop behind me, I'm not going to stop or slow down. She tried to beg me to follow the speed limits, and I told her no. Finally, she realized that I wasn't joking, and they were, the people that was with Tayzli and Whitney, they were on the phone with Logan EMS for, 10, 15 minutes or so. So they had a head start of me before I did. And, I got to Mendon, and their first responder ambulance got in front of me. And so at the time, there's a cutoff road that we could go from our house off to the main road. But at that time, it was washed out, so we couldn't get to that cutoff. And then, so we just went on the main road. It was an extra probably 5 minutes more. And I got there probably, I don't know, a few minutes before the Logan EMS did. And I just seen Tayzli on the ground. Whitney was freaking out. She was in bad shape. So I just slammed on my brakes, hopped out, tried to see what was going on, hugged Whitney. A few minutes later, they called the bird. The bird landed just shortly, I don't know, a few hundred feet away from our house. And Whitney was able to fly to primaries with Tayzli. And a neighbor of mine drove me to primaries. And that was the longest, I'd say, hour of my life. I remember calling my brother-in-law. He lives in Wisconsin, and he's not a paramedic. I don't know. He does. I don't know if he's a paramedic, EMS. I don't know, but he's medically smart. So I called him and I asked him, told him what happened and stuff, and I said, shoot me straight, don't lie to me. I need to know before I get there. And he's like, well, is there stuff coming out of her ears? And I said, yeah, there was when I left. And he said, usually when that happens, they're not too far from being gone. So that was hard, but I needed to know before I got there. And then I remember Whitney told me when he landed, that doctor told you, and you hit the doctor.
Yeah. I think life flight wouldn't have came if we didn't have like all those nurses there that kind of could tell 911 exactly what was happening in her condition, because then it escalated it very quickly. So we're so glad they were there to have life flight come directly to us. We didn't have to waste time in an ambulance. And we got to the hospital and they did an MRI and x-rays and everything as fast as they could. They have an entire team there. They're just incredible. And they got us upstairs and there was 20 people in her room, but they weren't doing anything. Like nobody was doing anything. And they finally sat me down in the corner. They were looking on the computer. And I finally was just like, can you just tell me what's going on? Like, why are we not doing anything? You know, I still like very much in shock still. So I didn't realize, like, you know, but you just hold on to everything. And she said, I remember she asked where my husband was, and I said he's on his way. And for some reason, her and another nurse, the doctor and the nurse, just like, I was sitting in the corner and they just said, she's not gonna make it. And I just remember like screaming at her. I punched her. I was just like, no, like, you can't say that. You didn't even do anything yet. I was so mad. And then they took my phone away so I wouldn't call AJ because they were afraid he was driving and they didn't want him to wreck. So they took my phone until he got there, and I was just counting down the seconds till he got there. And actually our neighbor's little boy was fighting cancer at the same time, so they were there for a visit. And so she came up, and it was so nice to have like a familiar face in the chaos. And then our bishop and I think one of the counselors was down there too, like in Salt Lake for a meeting, so they were able to come up right away and give her a blessing. And it just felt nice to have people there. But I just remember feeling like it took 7 hours for AJ to get there. And I don't know why it felt like that. I hated that it took so long. So, yeah, they immediately did like a brain injury test on her, and she failed. They told us that she had like a skull fracture and brain swelling, and they're, you know, hoping for the best, but it didn't look good kind of thing. But it takes time to do a brain death. And so we didn't know how that process works. It's like a series of 3 tests every 12 hours. So it's like a 24-hour test. And so the first one I watched them perform, and it's super simple. But she failed. And yeah, then AJ got there. All of our family and friends showed up within the next 2 days, and her third brain test was at like, what time was it the next day?
Was it night? No, it was.
When they pronounced her.
Yeah.
It was.
So it was 11:59.
And they finished it, and our entire family was there, like all of our aunts and uncles and cousins, and just, there was a ton of us, and I just thought it was another test. I didn't know what to expect, but then at the end, she said time of death, and we didn't expect that at all. AJ actually passed out. He like fell off his stool, and they had to take him down to the emergency room, and we're kind of like, oh, I think he has a heart condition. You should check it out. So we were like, great. What else can we deal with, you know? But I remember my brother went and got my kids, my boys, and having them come, that was hard. Just, I remember asking the social worker, like, how am I supposed to tell my boys their sister's never gonna wake up? Like, that's not something, an everyday conversation you expect to have or have to practice with, you know? And that was really hard to see, the heartbreak in their eyes, just, and they didn't really understand. Our oldest did, but our younger one was like, what do you mean? She's right there, you know? So that was a really hard part about that day, is to tell them. It just makes you feel like you failed as a parent. You know, we did everything we could, just normal thing we do every day. You don't expect it to change, you know?
Did you know what happened with the horse? Like, did it spook?
Yeah, they said that a car was coming up the road, and this horse was older. He'd been on, like,
City slicker rides.
Yeah.
People from the city rides
in
him.
like other countries, like, he's just like a dude rancher, so he's used to everything. And I don't know really what happened, but they said the horse spooked, and Tayzli was in a buddy saddle. So the rider was in the front, and then she had her own like stirrups and like handles that she could hold on, and she just flipped backwards and hit her head on the side of the road. So she hit just barely on the asphalt.
She had 2 inches of hard pavement to hit, and the rest was soft dirt and she hit the pavement. I remember asking the doctor too, because I mean I was raised with horses and stuff, you know, riding horses, and never once wore a helmet. And so I asked the doctor, I said, would a helmet would have prevented this? And she said no. She said the way she landed and the way on her temple, she said the helmets don't cover where it was. So I just needed to know that, because I mean, Whitney's pretty active on social media and stuff, and we got a lot of mean comments about our little girl not wearing a helmet and stuff while they're riding a horse. And,
from all the haters,
yeah, so that's why I had to have reassurance from a professional.
It's just hard though.
It's just hard.
We all grew up in the country. All of us have rode a horse since we were tiny. Like, I can't remember one time I've worn a helmet on a horse. Unless I was in an arena and it was required or something.
I never have.
Never have.
Yeah.
So AJ, take me through that drive to Salt Lake. Whitney said you had already been struggling with suicidal ideation. Here you are, not knowing what you're going to encounter, but knowing that it wasn't good. What was going through your mind during that drive? Did it shift to full focus of Tayzli, or were you just like in a different world?
I was just in a different world. Like, seeing Tay not moving at all, and having heard Whitney get in the bird after that, it just, my world just stopped. Because I don't want to lose my baby girl. Driving to Salt Lake was like I said, it was the longest drive I've had, and I just didn't want to think about my life without her. And then when I called my brother-in-law and he told me that, I just wanted to kind of say, no, you're wrong, you know, there's no way, she can't be dead, she'll be okay. And then when I got there, it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of like slow motion from when I got there to everything. It's just, I just don't know. I don't know the right answer for that. I guess it's just my world just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I knew nothing was going to be the same again. I knew it wasn't, what parent needs to bury their kid at such a young age. I mean, she was so young, it's just, I don't know why. I mean, things happen for a reason, obviously, and we'll get into that eventually, but I just don't understand, it's just, at that moment, you just don't understand. You don't want to live there. You don't want to live. It's still hard.
Yeah.
It's still pretty hard.
Holy cow, guys. So, maybe take us then through the days and weeks and months after that day that turned your world upside down, and just how you started initially coping, or maybe not coping, with what had just happened, and what gave you strength to get up in the morning and still love your boys and keep being a mom and a dad to them.
Yeah, I think going back to the hospital, we were just like in disbelief with it all. We didn't know how this worked. I remember texting my bishop at like 1 a.m. and being like, I don't even know how to plan a funeral. Like, I'm not old enough for this.
Yeah.
I've never had to bury anybody really. And so we had to kind of go through all that. But at the same time, we knew enough about medical things that we actually approached one of the nurses right before her last brain test and just said, like, is she eligible to be an organ donor if things don't work out? And I don't know why that like comes in your mind in the middle of the shock and stuff you're in, but it did. It came into my head, and I asked AJ about it, and he said yeah. And so we were obviously interested about it, but we didn't know anything about it or how it works. Like, we both were organ donors on our license, but we don't need our organs, right?
Yeah.
You don't think about that for your children. That's a completely different conversation. So I remember the social worker took us into like this other room, and I kept being mad that she wanted to pull us out of her room. I'm like, no, just tell me right here. Like, I just didn't want to leave her ever. And so she kind of went over the process and answered all of our questions and fears, and it was still really scary because, I mean, if you watch someone pass away on TV, you're just in the room and then it goes,
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of pictured like that's gonna happen, but like she was gone, but her body was still alive.
Yeah.
And when you do donation, they just go into surgery like that.
Yeah.
So there's no point that you get to see that they're gone.
Yeah.
And so we met with her actually a couple times. We kept telling her we want to think about it, and I think we both knew we wanted to do it. It was just like the finalization of saying goodbye, And so we finally said yes. Like, if we could wake up Tayzli, that's what she would want to do. She would always be the first one. Like, if you hurt yourself, she's running to the hall to get a Band-Aid before you could even tell her you needed one, And she loved everybody. And the pain that you feel when you lose your child is like an earthly description. You can't even describe it. It's awful. It's a physical pain. It's everywhere. And we just knew, like, seeing all the other little kids in the hospital, if we could prevent another parent from feeling how we were feeling, it would be worth it. Because I wouldn't ask even my worst enemy to take on that burden. It was awful. It hurt so bad. So we decided to donate her organs, and they started the process of doing the test for that, and it takes a little bit. And I was kind of grateful because that just meant we had more time with her. We could just sit and love her while we could. And
I think it was just hard. It felt like a countdown. Like, she's gonna go into surgery this night, so you have until this long. But it was good to have that time, and everybody got to come and say goodbye. And they took her to surgery, and we couldn't go past the doors, and we had to tell her goodbye. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life. But I think the organ donation really helped us keep going. For some reason, we really held on to that because it felt like she was gone, but gosh, her heart was beating somewhere.
Yeah.
And that meant something, right?
Yeah.
And for some reason, it really helped us keep going. Like, okay, like, she had a
still lives
purpose.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna think about her. She's not forgotten. Because that was like the biggest thing. Like, oh, everyone's gonna forget about her. And every time I met someone new, I'm like, they don't know about my little girl.
Yeah.
She's gone. And it was like a huge thing for me. Like a big stumbling block I had, you know? And so, organ donation's a lot like a closed adoption, I would say. So you can write letters to the recipients, and they go to my company, this organization, and then they ask the recipients if they want the letters or not, and they can say yes or no. And then if they say yes, then they get them, then they can write back through the same. So it's kind of like the middleman, right? Until there's an open communication, and then you can talk to each other. And we knew it took time. They said usually average is like 1 year that people will start to reach out.
Yeah.
But I don't know if your wives are like this and like the FBI.
Yeah.
And Tayzli's story was very public. It was all over social media and all over the news. They had like a balloon release for her the night she went to surgery, and all 3 news stations were there. And so I was hoping that somebody that got her heart, and if it was in Utah, they would see that and know and then reach out, or I don't know, you know, and
quicken the process a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously I would start scouring. I was like, well, if hers is public, maybe theirs is. So I was like, heart transplant, Utah, like, I just wanted to know. And I guess the heart recipient's family actually saw us at the hospital because they had seen us on the news, and they passed us on our way out that night. And my neighbor said, I know who got your heart. I know the dad's name. So we had the dad's name and where he worked. And so then I was like, FBI sleuthing that, right? Like, how do I get a hold of this guy? And then I had someone reach out on Instagram and say, I know who got the heart, but I wasn't understanding their message very well. They spoke a different language. And then I was like, you get wary. Like, I mean, I had thousands of messages, so I was just like, I don't know, you know, but I didn't forget it. And then about a month and a half later, 2 months later, we found out the heart recipients had wrote us letters, and we were like, yes, we want them. And when they came, there was like 20 letters in one package. It was really cool. This family's from Brazil, and so they had everybody write a letter. I mean, their family is amazing. I don't know if you guys know that culture very well, but they're incredible. Incredible people. And so AJ was coyote hunting in Nevada, and I was like, get your butt home. Like, we have letters to open, and I wanted to open them without him, because I don't want to wait, because it just felt like that's what we had hoped for. We'd hoped for like somebody having a good story, a good outcome from our complete loss, you know?
Yeah.
And it hurt really bad, because like, why didn't we get our miracle? I remember I've never prayed so hard in my entire life than I did in the hospital. Like, I begged God, like, this could be our miracle. You see him all the time. And then it didn't happen. And you get so angry and hurt. But then to see this beautiful little boy that, like, wasn't going to live another day, and then he got Tay's heart, like, you know, kind of all made sense. And I was really happy for them. We were both really happy for them. But it's hard, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we got to meet their family, and the little boy that got her heart, his name's Dylan. He was 2, and he was born with with the left heart syndrome, so like the left side of his heart wasn't working. And so he was very, very sick, and I mean, he was like purple and blue. And I remember telling the nurses, like, to tell whoever got her organs that they're gonna wake up with spunk and fire, and she loved ice cream, and he wasn't eating at all because he was so sick, and they said that when he woke up from surgery, he woke up faster than they thought he would, or was more active than they thought he would, and he asked for ice cream. And so I was like, what a sign is that, Like, it was kind of cool, and so it was just really special to hear from them so quickly, and it felt like such a big answer to our prayers, because we just wanted to know, like, she was living. Like, I think if the heart surgery didn't work and her heart was dead, it would have felt like another loss.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was really good to hear that he was doing okay.
Would you say, like, that moment, you said it was a month and a half to 2 months later that you kind of got those letters, would you say that kind of was a pivotal moment in the healing process for you?
Yeah.
What about you, AJ?
Yeah, I guess, but it still was like, I guess it was selfish of me, I guess you could say, is, they had their miracle, but I didn't get mine, and, it's just like, what did I do to deserve this? But it was good. It was, I was happy for them, their family, that they don't have to, go through what we just did. But it still sucked, just the whole life, I guess, just throws you curveballs.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it was kind of healing, for just knowing that she was still alive, that she wasn't completely gone. She's just gone here on Earth. It was that, and then knowing, like, we eventually later got letters from another boy that got her liver, and adults that got her kidneys. So that was, when we get that, it was nice knowing that, like, they didn't throw away her organs, or they were still, progressively trying to find a positive match for her organs, which was nice. But yeah, it's still hard. I'm just glad that those people are fine, I guess.
Yeah, I don't blame you for how you feel. I don't think that's far off of what a lot of people would feel in that situation, of asking why and not getting your miracle of how it was. But I think in a certain sense, like, you guys talked about Tay and how she always was the first one to help, right, when somebody got hurt, and just to know, like, in my eyes, Tay's a hero, right? She sacrificed, herself and her situation to help others. So how many people with her organ donation total did she help?
She helped 4. So
4.
She helped Dylan, who got her heart, and then a 4-year-old little boy up in Montana actually got her liver. His parents abandoned him at the hospital, so he was, like, in custody of the state. Basically, he had cancer, and he wasn't doing very well. And so one of his nurses was like, he's gonna die in this hospital alone, and I'm not okay with that. And so she went home, and her kids are older, they were teenagers, and just said, hey, I want to bring this little boy home so he can die being surrounded by a family. Are you okay with that? And they said yes. And so they brought home this cute little 4-year-old boy to pass away, and they got the call that Tayzli's liver was a match. And so they were able to fly into California and get the liver. bring him home, and he was killed. Like, what a miracle for him, you know. And then he was able to be adopted by 2 of the lifeline nurses in their hospital. And so now he has like an entire family of his own and new siblings and a whole life, you know. And I know he's still been battling cancer, but I think he's doing good, and hopefully we get to meet him one day. You know, he's really cute. So that was another positive thing. I remember when we got his letter, his foster mom that brought him to, had written this beautiful letter with all these pictures, and like she was so good at her storytelling and stuff. And he had blonde hair. He looked like he could fit in our family. I was like, should we adopt him? Is this a sign? He needs a family. Like, I was like, I can't. That's weird, right? But I wanted to. Like, I just wanted to hold on to any other piece of her that I could.
Yeah.
And then her kidneys went to 2 grandpas, like, when we didn't know kidneys could go to adults. So that was kind of a cool thing to learn. And they, we heard from one of them, and he's doing great. And we're awful. We have never written the other one. But it's hard. It's kind of a hard thing, even though we're all about it. Sometimes it just, like, paralyzes you. You know?
There's a sting to it.
Yeah. And then her corneas both went to 2 men as well. So all of her recipients were men, which was interesting because, I don't know, it's just a weird fact. Like, when we would go to church, she would always, like, run up and down the aisles. You know, little girls, like little 2 and 3-year-old girls, are terrified of the old grandpas with big beards. No, she would climb on their laps. Like, she had no fear of anybody. So it didn't surprise me that they went to men, because she just loved them. Like, she was the friendliest little girl. And it just kept us going, like, motivated. Like, hey, she's not forgotten. She didn't die for no reason, you know. And as terrible as it sounds, like, I believe everybody's gonna die when they're supposed to die, right? Like, I really, truly believe that. When Tayzli woke up that day, like, I think she knew. And I don't know how to describe that. Like, she just, like, that day was perfect. I brought her home, like, a sandwich and soup, and she spilled the soup everywhere, and I didn't even get mad at her. Like, not that I would get mad, but just, like, it was just an easy day, and, like, everything was perfect. And she just wanted to go ride her dang horse. And it just felt like it was meant to be. And that's, like, a hard thing to say, because you don't want your kid to die. You don't want to say any of that kind of stuff. But I'm glad she went out doing what she loved. And it was fast, and she had to suffer from cancer or something terrible, you know?
Yeah.
Her little dance friend, her best friend, came down to say goodbye to her. And on the way down, she told her mom, Tayzli didn't fall off her horse. Jesus caught her. And so we just kind of, like, loved hearing that, you know, like, yeah, I think Jesus would have caught her. Like, she never felt pain, you know? So I really liked that part.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the pillars of our podcast is grace, right? And AJ, you said earlier, everything happens for a reason. I mean, it was the perfect day. There was 2 inches of asphalt that she could have hit. The rest of it was soft, and she landed on the hard part. I mean, I would say that's nothing short of the grace of God, in a very tough way for you guys as parents, having to deal with it in the moment, right? But knowing that there's a higher power orchestrating all of that has to bring you at least some level of comfort or solace, at least, right? Knowing that this isn't our plan. I begged God to let her live, and he didn't. But because of that, for other people, got a miracle, right? And maybe it changed your guys' lives in a way that you could talk about that is a miracle in and of itself, right? How you grew through the situation, maybe how your boys grew through the situation. Like, maybe talk to us about some of the growth through this trial.
Yeah. Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like, if we're completely honest, the religion we grew up in, as this was all happening, we were exiting. And it had been years of, like, trying to figure out where we fit. Because we live in a very predominantly one religion community, and if you're not in it, you're wrong. You know, and just things we had experienced and gone through, we just didn't know, like, if it's what we wanted anymore. which is hard to admit. Like, we hid it for a really long time because I think AJ was gone way before I was. But it's hard because, like, you still believe in God. We just didn't like the organized religion part of it that we were in.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, like, we'll do anything. Please let us have our miracle, show us that we're wrong, that we can believe in you, And I still believe in God. I still believe in God. I still believe in that higher power. And I still believe, like, he had a plan, like, and Tay's with him. And I believe all of that. And I'm so grateful that I know all that. I really do believe I'll see her again. And at the same time, like, people make terrible comments, Like, don't ever tell somebody your child's in a better place. Like, how about I take your child and tell you your kid's better with me? Like, that just doesn't sit very well sometimes, And we would have people say, well, if you came to church, it wouldn't hurt so bad. Like, there's just so many comments that, like, we were just still just like a lost sheep, but they were treating us like the black sheep.
Yeah.
And so I don't think this experience, like, pushed us away more. It just kind of reaffirmed how we were feeling, because I don't know how to explain it. As you go through it, you realize there's so much more. Like, I feel like I came out of this way more spiritual than I was before. Like, way more spiritual. And I had nothing, like, I feel like the church for me looks like this, but the insight I got was like this.
Yeah.
And it's hard to describe to people without offending them, right? But I think we were angry for a long time, and I think that was justified. I talked to my doctor, and he said that one of the, I don't remember if it was the 12 apostles or one of the, I don't know, somebody, they lost a child, and they left the church for 7 years before they decided they could come back, because it hurt so bad. Yeah. It's like a hard thing. So I felt better thinking, okay, if he needed a break, then I'm okay to figure this out for myself too, And how do we navigate this loss, and what do we believe in? What do we want to be a part of,
Yeah.
So that was hard, and really, like, the only reason AJ and I didn't drive off a cliff the next day was because of our boys. Like, we had to wake up every day for that, But I remember it felt impossible to be like, okay, brush your teeth, get dressed, and, like, let's clean
just
the house. Like, it felt impossible to do everyday tasks. My brother's girlfriend moved in with us, and, like, made sure my kids had clean clothes and a toothbrush. Like, I just felt like I was incapable. I don't even remember a lot of that period of time, because I was in such a haze, Like, what was the purpose of being alive if she was gone? I just felt like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
And I think AJ felt a lot the same way. He didn't want to go to work. He didn't know his purpose anymore. It kind of just shifts your entire life. And just trying to, like, answer our kids' questions. They grieved very differently. They were 9 and 6, and they had a lot of questions, or they didn't want to talk about it at all. It was like one or the other, But everyone slept in our bed every night, and we just didn't want to let them out of our sight. And somehow we all kind of powered through it. And I think at some point they were even taking care of us, which makes me feel really guilty. But I was also just in survival mode, so I can't beat myself up too much.
Yeah. Well, I think you can draw from their strength, right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of times, at least with my kids, sometimes they'll call me out or say things, and I'm just like, you are not wrong. Right? Like, Dad needs to shape up and do something. And I think, honestly, the kids we have, and, like, the families that we're organized in and or on the earth, I think we're chosen. And I think those boys are part of your family for a reason.
Yeah.
To bring that strength in that time. But so what? Kind of talking about the boys. Said they were 6 and 9, right? What? When they wanted to talk about stuff, were they? I guess what was their tone. I don't know another
Yeah.
word to it, but like, were they angry? Obviously, they're sad, right?
Yeah.
Were they confused, not understanding like what? How did they feel about
Yeah.
knowing that Tay was still living on through these other individuals? Did that give them comfort? Can you
Yeah.
kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I don't know that they really understood that at first. I think it was really confusing for them.
Yeah.
There was a lot of questions, a lot of confusion, and just a lot of sadness. Like, one of our sons didn't want to talk about it at all. He'd just cry and avoid it, and another one would ask questions like, why? Or, he always wanted to go see Tay. So we made a lot, like, he couldn't sleep at night, we'd just go to the cemetery. It'd be 1 o'clock in the morning, we'd just sit there until he was ready to go home, and then he'd go right to bed. He just missed her, and so it was just a lot of, like, kids don't understand what grief is,
Yeah.
It's a big feeling. So they had a really hard time with it. And I feel like for one of them, the grief came a lot later. And so we had them in therapy. They did play therapy, and they really loved it. And it was really good for them. And they say that kids grieve at every, like, milestone in their life. So when they become a teenager, they grieve that. Or, like, do you know what I mean? Every time they're growing, they're going to reprocess that grief, basically. Yeah. So we've kind of just had to be there for them, and we've honestly let them guide how that looks. Yeah. So if they want to talk about it, we talk about it. Sometimes it's just like, we'll just be sitting there at dinner, and they'll say, do you remember when we did this with Tay? And that kind of is like a cue, like, they're missing her and they want to talk about her.
Yeah.
Because we never want to be pushy about it or feel like we're forcing them to heal because we need to heal. And I think we had to realize that too, like, even though we're hurting, they might be okay, and that's okay. And then it flips, and then they're hurting, and we need to be there for them, Yeah. So it's hard to
around who needs to be the strength.
And a lot of it was like behavioral. Like, it would come out in like anger. Like, there would be big anger spells, and I'd be like, what is wrong with you? Why are you freaking out at us? And then we realize, oh, they're grieving.
Yeah.
And it's hard to recognize, like, what's a real behavior problem and what's grief. So trying to, like, recognize it,
Yeah.
And sometimes when they're angry or having a behavior problem, they just need some time. They want to talk about Tay, or they need to take a drive and get some ice cream. There was a lot of ice cream runs in the next year or so. It was really hard to navigate, to be honest, but they did such a great job, like, for their ages, and
And maybe talk about, I guess, 2 questions I have to follow up with that. Kind of your guys' grieving process, and like, what resources did you pull from? You talked about your spiritual journey a little bit, but what other sources did you pull from to get through the grieving process? And then how did that change your guys' relationship with each other?
It's your turn.
My turn?
Yeah. You've been so quiet.
No, you're doing great. Go ahead. I don't know any resources that
You tried therapy. You hated it.
Yeah, I tried therapy. The thing is with therapy, for me at least, I went through a lot of therapists. I just have to find the right one to help you, or to help me. And once I found the right therapist, it was easier to go through and navigate and like, realize like what I've so when Tay died, like Whitney said before, I was going through a lot of stuff with depression and stuff, and then Tay died, and then I went right back in, except probably a lot worse.
I think he tried to overdose about a month after Tayzli died. And
then after that, I got sent into the psych unit for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
My youngest boy, I remember they couldn't come see me every night or whatever, but Whitney could or something. I can't remember how it worked, but I remember Whitney one night before the visiting hours ended, she came over and said, "Do you realize what Brody said to me?" And I said, "No, I had no idea. I'm not there." And she said, "Am I not good enough for Daddy?" That one tore me up pretty good. Going to therapy, find the right person. Didn't realize what I put my family through from me trying to go see Tay. Because all I did is I just wanted her back. I just wanted to feel her. He always told me to kiss my yips. I always missed that. And I wanted to see it. I just one more time. That's the only thing I can think of. Knowing that if I did it, they would do another one. But finding resources is it was really helpful for me once I found the right one. I still have my lows and stuff and everything, but for the most part, therapy. At first I was like, I'm not gonna go see a shrink. Shrinks are stupid. I don't need to.
Yeah.
I'm a grown man. It's just for my other occupation, what I was doing for 6 to 8 years or whatever. It was, if you show weakness, then you're just not a man type of a thing. So that's just how I was. Didn't think I needed to, and didn't want to because I don't want to be vulnerable or anything like that. But then going back, you're realizing what I've especially put Whitney through. She has to worry about, like if I'm gone, if I shut my phone off or whatever, like, am I dead? Did I kill myself? Type of thing like that, because it's pretty hard. She's just a strong person. She's the one that helped me find, or what, she actually told me to go get help for the resources, and we both finally decided to have me go after my first visit in the hospital. And just don't realize, like, we know what each of us are feeling. Like we want to talk to each other, to try to talk about it and everything, but it's just that. And then, like, with me, it's like, well, how I feel, I don't need to talk to you, but then I'm pushing her away, not really talking to her, just figuring, like, what I'm doing, what I'm feeling. Well, I don't need to help you, you don't need to help me, type of a thing. But with the therapist has really helped out as far as, like, trying to talk to, to her, to anybody, if you feel down, or, try to, like, you're just feeling lost or whatever, if I'm feeling lost or whatever, it's just, I didn't think any of that kind of, those programs or people were out there, let's put it that way, until that happened.
He would make comments like, I don't want to show you I'm not feeling strong because I feel like it'll make you feel like you have to take care of me or something, and I'm already taking care of the kids and myself, and but I was like, no, I want to know when you're grieving or when you're feeling bad or weak. Like, we all had our moments of, like, crying on the floor every night or whatever, but as time goes on, like, it's still there, but not as hard.
Yeah.
And we both grieve differently. Like it's either write it on the table or you hide it till you explode, you know? And so, like, I could go all day being ornery and in a bad mood. I'm like, what is wrong with me? And then I'm like, oh, I'm just grieving. Like,
Yeah.
but I don't realize it, you
Yeah.
know? So I feel like my kids and AJ are the same way. Sometimes they just don't know why they're in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Till we kind of dig in a little deep and you're like, okay, it's more than that. And it definitely tore us apart. It brought us together. It depended on the week. We hated each other. We loved each other. It's hard. I think the divorce rate of a child lost parent or parents is like 80%.
Wow.
And we were definitely there to make it 81%, 50% of the time or more. You know, it's hard.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of love I have for AJ it's out of this world, but it's hard.
Yeah.
And so trying to navigate it sometimes felt like just another loss, like, that's out of my control, you know?
Yeah.
How can I prevent this? But I can't because I'm not 100% either,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So it takes a toll on your family and on your marriage, on each other. You, like, lose a sense of who you are and your purpose. Like, literally, if we didn't have our boys, like, we wouldn't be here. It just felt like there's no purpose, you know? Like, you lose a sense of, like, identity.
Yeah. Part of you's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally.
AJ, I think a lot of guys, right, we're supposed to be masculine. We're supposed to be the strong guy in the relationship or marriage or just in society as a whole, right?
Yeah.
Like the guy is the macho man. I mean, we played football and sports together. It's like you don't cry playing baseball. You don't cry playing football. Like you just keep going. You take the bruises and you keep going. But I think it shows like the importance, right? I think I've always thought like counselors. I think there's specific ones that have personalities or experiences that fit, right? So it took a little bit for you to find the one that kind of synced with you and helped, right? But I appreciate you being vulnerable on here and talking about like the importance and how that has helped you. I haven't solved everything, but maybe it's helped you, take a couple steps more in the right direction and talk about it. And I think it's good just in marriage as general, aside from Tay, like having that communication, open communication when somebody's having a bad day and the other one's not, like being able to, alter that because the next day could be totally flipped,
Yeah.
right? And it could be different. So, thanks for sharing that. And with your boys, I mean, we are friends. We follow you on social media. They're awesome, right? They're very active, like to do a lot of different things. And I remember seeing a lot of posts of you guys at the cemetery with Tay and being there. And I think you guys are a strength of what everybody can draw from to understand just in relationships, and being a little bit more vulnerable can help so other people can know, well, maybe I'm strong today and I could help my wife or a friend or whatever, right? So
it reminds me of I'm sure, are you guys familiar with Granger Smith and his story?
Yeah.
So he has a song that just reminded me. I think the words are like, what happens to a rock when it has nothing to lean on?
Yeah.
That's how he was feeling as a dad when they lost his son.
Yeah.
I'm the rock of this family, but now I have nothing to lean on. So what's going to happen to me?
Yeah.
And he had to go through his own grieving process as well, and eventually found the strength that he needed. So, sorry, you were going somewhere with it.
No, I guess you kind of talked about how your boys talk about, oh, remember when we did this with Tay or that with Tay. Are there any specific, I guess, memories that continue to help inspire you to be like, no, Tay would not want me to be like this, or would not want this for me. I need to be better because that's what she would want, even though right? She's not here. She lives on through other individuals and through you guys. But kind of for her, is there anything that you guys cling to that helps you be like, Tay needs me to be like this and would expect me to be this way?
I don't think there's anything super specific for me, but it's like everything.
Yeah.
You know, like she wouldn't. I don't know if you've ever seen the picture of a wife in a coffin. It's just like a painting,
Mm-hmm.
but the husband is laying on top of her, like trying to hold her.
Yeah.
And it's basically just saying like you can't die with the people that die. You have to keep living, right? So she wouldn't want us to lay in bed all day and cry.
Yeah.
So I try to remember that on my hard days, like I gotta show up for her, or I felt like I should show up for her friends for a long time, you know, or just try to live my best life because she wouldn't want me to just give up.
Yeah.
You know, like I do think it was her time to go, as hard as that is, but it wasn't my time.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta keep going. I gotta keep trying. I gotta be a good person. So I think that, and just like her little signs that she'll give us that she's still there, like remind me, okay, like she's still here, she still cares, she's still watching, she's still close. So keep going. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I know we don't have to be perfect, but I don't know. I still not very specific answer, but yeah, just be a good person. I don't know. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just like when she passed away, it took me, with my business, I shut down. I didn't sell it yet. Took me 9 months to get back in my. She just loved riding with me. If she wasn't dancing, if she didn't have any dance or school or tumbling or whatever, she always wanted to ride with me. Or when she was done, Whitney and Tay always met me somewhere. So yeah, it took me 9 months and everything, and it were just one day, it's like, you know, I like doing that. I love driving. Tay loved me driving. She loved being with me. So why not get back in the saddle again? So it just, with that, just helped me, knowing that, you know, there's times it's weird. You know, I drive for 15, 16, 17 hours, you know, or so, and knowing that she's watching me, and there's times that, you know, it's like, hell, is she there? Where is she? You know, it's just kind of weird knowing that she's still around, helping you out, type of a thing. I just don't know if that was I don't know if that's the right answer or what, or if I went the wrong way.
No. I think that's perfect. I think my personal opinion, as much as Tay physically has her organs living in other people, she's just as active for you guys and your boys, right? Being there as people call it, a guardian angel, or, you know, help from heaven, whatever you want to call it. But I definitely think she's there. And for me, and we heard it, obviously, just being on the other side of this, of you guys being, you know, good friends and growing up, and when this happened, I think it was hard to know what you guys were going through and how to help, right? Or like I don't even know what to do, but pray to help that, you know, Heavenly Father could help comfort in some way or do something. But with that, what advice would you give somebody who maybe sees this podcast or something to help them with either the same thing of losing a child, or, you know, a loved one or someone close to? What advice would you give them?
I don't know. I always think I know this answer because I've been through it, but I don't, because there's really no good answer. Like, it's so different for everybody.
Yeah.
But I just distinctly remember at the viewing or the funeral, one of the lines, they this lady came through and she lost her little girl, and she said, I promise one day you'll be able to breathe again. And I was like, okay, I'm breathing right now. But I just thought about that, and it did. Grief feels like, when it's really, really heavy, it feels like you can't take a big breath and you really get in some good air. Like, it feels like, you take a big breath and you kind of breathe and you calm down and your body feels centered. You're not like that. You're kind of in fight or flight.
Yeah.
And I remember a couple years later, I was like, wow, I can actually breathe. Like, and it was true. Like, so sometimes I do tell people, I promise one day you can breathe again. Like, 'cause right now it feels like you can't. You can't get that full breath of air that's really helping you sustain yourself, And another advice I would say is just take care of yourself, because if you're not really taking care of yourself, like physically and mentally, it's not good. Like, if you need to go to the gym every day and get that anger out, do it. If you struggle just to get up and get in the shower every day, like, just make that your goal and do it. Because sometimes even the littlest things can be hard. They can feel like Mount Everest. But if you can get a good routine to conquer your Mount Everest, you're better for it, Yeah. So I feel like our kids were our reason to get up and conquer what we needed to do. And some days we fell flat, but a lot of times we were able to do that. And then it gets easier. And it gets a little easier. And then you have a setback, but you're still on that right path. So just find something to help you get through it. Put your goals on paper, even if they seem dumb to anybody else. It doesn't matter. But just to hang in there, because it does get a little easier and it gets a little better, and you'll have setbacks and it's hard, but yeah, you can't die in the ground with your loved one,
Yeah.
So I loved that kind of advice. Just one day you can breathe again, and to hang in there, and obviously just get the help you need. Like, I hated therapy too. I quit my therapist like 2 weeks in. I thought it was stupid. She didn't help me at all. But now I am in therapy, and it's been life-changing, and I've found the right person and the right form of therapy, and it is completely changed me, who I am. I feel like a part of me obviously died when Tayzli died, but I am a new person now, and I'm grateful for who I am. And I don't know if you saw the interview with Granger Smith recently, and he said, someone asked him, did you see this? You could probably say it better than me, but if you could have your baby back, but take away all the lessons you've learned since he's been gone, would you do it? And he said no.
Yeah.
And I've probably thought about that for a week, and I still don't know my answer. Because I've grown so much, and I'm so grateful. But I'm like trying to reason with myself, like, okay, but if I got her back, I could still learn these other ways, right? Like, I could still, like, figure it out. Like, you learn from life, so it's fine. I'd still be a good person eventually. But that's a really big question. I still don't know the answer.
No,
so he's way stronger to say no, because I know how that feels. And I'd give anything to have her back. I would. But that's a big question. I don't know. Would you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for people?
No. Not really, no.
Yeah. It's hard. Honestly, like, I think people expect people that have gone through a loss to know the answers.
Yeah.
And we kind of don't.
Still
Because it's hard.
Still doing it every day.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, you broke your leg, how did you fix it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, okay, go have surgery and then go to physical therapy. Grief is like, it's not a straight line. It goes like this. And so it's just kind of like, hang on. You're on the biggest roller coaster of your life, and but you have to find a purpose for yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
part of your heart that's gone it won't ever heal, right? Like, literally part of you and is gone. And I think I like that you said those little wins, or those little goals, like, write it down, and if it's you, get up and eat breakfast and get in the shower, and that's your Mount Everest for the day, like, good on you.
And
feel accomplished, celebrate it, and maybe the next day it can be you get up, get in the shower, and you get dressed, right? And maybe you just slowly continue to do that. So I think that's great advice.
And I've also, the other advice is, like, feel your feels. Like, don't suppress it. If you're having a bad day, have the bad day.
Because if you suppress it, then you're gonna have a really bad day.
Yeah.
So like I don't as much anymore, but I would always get so griefy like in the grocery store.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I would just like start thinking about Tay or something, and I would just bawl through the grocery store. And I used to just leave my cart and go, like, 'cause I'm so
Yeah.
embarrassed. And I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm gonna feel it, I have to feel it when I'm feeling it. I
Yeah.
don't try and hide it anymore. I don't try and like make it go away. And you feel better if you let yourself go through your mountains, you know?
Yeah.
So that's one more advice.
That's good advice. You know, it's crazy. This was 7 years ago, and you know, we talked about we were in high school together. We played sports together. After that, we all kind of go our separate ways and get married, have kids. Life happens. And at the time that this happened, I was actually up in Anchorage, Alaska. I was working for Mountain Star Healthcare, and I was on their accounting team. We worked remotely here in Cache Valley, but I had to travel up there once in a while. And I'm pretty sure it was Ty text me, and I was sitting there in the office up in Alaska, and he's like, hey, this just happened to AJ and Whitney's little girl. Don't know what the outcome's going to be. And then the next day he texts me, and he's like, she didn't make it. And I mean, we'd been out of high school at that point for what, I don't know, 10 years, 8 years, something like that.
Yeah.
11 years. And I was like heartbroken.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not even that close with these guys anymore, but they were my friends, and I had little kids at the time. I think my oldest son was like 3.5, 4-ish, and then my little girl was like 1.5 to 2. And so it was like close to home with, you know, my little boy, and I couldn't imagine. And then I remember hearing, I was up there for a few more days, and Ty kept updating me on everything. So thank goodness for good friends.
Yeah.
But he's like, hey, they're coming out with this slogan, TayTay Tough. I think he sent me like a GoFundMe or Venmo or something, and said, if you want to donate, here it is. So talk to us about that and kind of what inspired TayTay Tough and what it means still today, 7 years later.
We had nothing to do with that.
Nope.
So we obviously were just in shock and trying to figure all this out, but we also needed to tell all of our family members. So I remember I did a group text. Once I got in the helicopter, I just was like, oh, I'm going to hurry and tell like my parents and my siblings to get to the hospital, right? Mm-hmm. AJ's dad, he had called his dad, and he actually was working in Mendon for work and just raced over. They were fixing the road, and so he was there and was able to call his wife, and I think AJ had called his sister or texted his sister, and one of them had gotten the picture that I sent from when she came out of the MRI. I snapped a picture and just said, please hurry, please come. And somehow that ended up on Facebook and circulated, which it was not a very pretty picture. And then all of our friends was circulating it, and you know, at the time, like with the Lance Armstrong thing, like that hashtag, what was his hashtag? I don't know.
Live strong. Yeah.
You know, all the hashtags were coming out for people going through hard stuff.
Yeah.
And one of our friends came up with TayTay Tough, so she put that on her post, like TayTay Tough, and like pray for these guys. And then my brother started a GoFundMe, and so it just kind of like started rolling. And we didn't even know, because we weren't even on our phones, like except for to text who we really needed to have at the hospital, you know. And so it just kind of took off without us knowing, and we actually were trying to ask around and see who started it. I think we figured out who started it, but now I can't remember for sure. Was it Shanna or Amber?
No, it was Jackson's mom. Perkins. Remember?
I thought it was Shanna Reese.
Oh. You're right.
I don't know. I think it was Shanna Reese or Amber Butters, one of them. I can't remember. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but they just like... We always called her TayTay, and they just said TayTay Tough because it was another T, and you know, and it just kind of inspired the hashtag for her, which we loved, because then we were able to, you know, you can click on the hashtag and see everything posted or whatever. So it was kind of nice that they just made that for us, and they started the GoFundMe, and people are so generous and so sweet, and after she passed, we just decided to keep it going, you know, so we always wrote our post with TayTay Tough, and we tried to live TayTay Tough. Like, Cause she was tough. She was a tough little girl, like, you know.
She once got hit or kicked by a donkey in the head.
In the head.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She had no fear of anything. Like, even that morning, I have a video of it. We were brushing her horse off, and she's like, I told her, are you going to braid the tail? And she goes, I don't want to be kicked in the head again.
Yeah.
So, like, you can't tell people those stories because
Yeah.
they're like, oh, you guys are terrible parents. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you let her get kicked in the head, and then she fell off. Like,
Right.
whatever. So, I don't know. Sometimes we were like, yeah, we have to wake up and live TayTay Tough. Like, today I have to be tough, you know, like Tay. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was a cool hashtag. We love it. We made it into our foundation name, and yeah, it's good.
That's cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking every year when you put up to her birthday and TayTay Tough and go get ice cream, right? Remind everybody like she loved it. And I remember seeing that when I was deployed, and they had these little tiny things, and I think I sent you the picture. And I explained it to the guys and the people that were with me, like, hey, we got to do this, and told them the story, and it impacted them and helped them, and they were all about it. And one of the gals that was with me made this big sign out of cardboard. We didn't have much, but she wrote it all on cardboard, and we got a picture. And I think it's just a good reminder. I mean, obviously you see her beautiful smile, and here she was. And I remember when you were a realtor, right? I think it was like a couple weeks before this happened, you actually took us and we had you show a house and take us to a house, and she was there, and our kids were kind of playing, and we talked about like, hey, we should get together. Like, they had so much fun, and so that even hit a little extra hard for me, like just remembering that day and her smile and just her attitude and love for the world, right? And so one of the reasons we asked one of you guys to come on here because we want her influence to continue to help people. Yeah. And you guys are awesome, and we appreciate you guys and being willing to share your story, because we know it's not easy. Yeah. But appreciate you coming on and being vulnerable. But one thing we do want to, you did mention about your donor organization, like that you work for. Yeah. So yeah, tell us about that and give a shout out and how it works, because we think it's awesome.
Okay, so we started our foundation, the TayTay Tough, and basically we just wanted to like give back to people that also lost children that chose to be organ donors, because it's a hard thing to make that really big decision when your child dies, right? Like, and pediatric organ donation is something that's not talked about. Nobody wants to talk about that, because that's the hardest thing ever. So every year, like around her anniversary, we would just get a whole truckload of donations and take it to Primary Children's and give back. Like, we give them blankets and clothes and toys and books and anything and everything we can, just in her honor, just another way so that she's not forgotten. Yeah. And it's really just another reason to like remember her for us. So it's really special. And then on her birthday we do the ice cream for Tay. She loves ice cream. So the organization Donor Connect, it used to be called Intermountain Donor Services, I think, when Tayzli died.
No, it was Donor Connect.
They were amazing with us. Like, they would always answer our questions or help us. They would ask us to come speak at different events. I started volunteering for them like a year after. I've done a lot of public speaking for them. We just do all kinds of things for them. And then I started volunteering in the classroom. I would go with other presenters, and I just told the boss, I was like, well, I really want this job. And he's like, well, I don't have a room for you. I was like, well, you better find a room, because I'm coming. You know? And I think at this point I was already in school. I hated therapy, and then I started my podcast. I have a podcast that we just stopped, similar to yours. We talk to people going through hard things, but I think that's what really helped me heal, is listening to other people go through hard things and see them come out the other side. Like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. I can keep going, you know? And I found a lot of like solace and stuff like that. And I finally realized like talking to people and talking about hard things is really healing for me. And that's what I want to continue to do. Yeah. So I started going to school. I was doing the presenter. I would do my part. I would share about Tayzli in classrooms. And finally one of the presenters, he told me, he's like, I'm going to move to Florida. I'm like, hey, I'm going to have your job. And he moved, and I got it.
Wow.
Awesome.
And I honestly, like, but life is hard. Like, I was going through a really hard time last fall, like, with grief and just, like, other things I was going through in life, and I almost turned it down. I was just like, I can't do it. I
It's too much, yeah.
turned it away. I was like, oh, somebody else will get it. Maybe next time. It's not right. But they waited for me, and I just got hired on, and now I just love it. So we're the OPO for Utah and a little bit of Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada. And yeah, they do all the things for organ donation in the state. So if anyone is a recipient or needs a donation, they're the teams that go in and do that and do all the coordination for everything.
Oh.
So that's where I work. They're out of Murray, and I do Cache County, Rich, and Box Elder County. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's
Awesome.
really great, and I love my job. I get to talk about Tayzli and how
Yeah.
organ donation works to teenagers, and honestly, even just sharing our story since it happened, people would come up to us and say, I changed my driver's license to yes because of Tayzli.
Mhm.
And then that felt like a big win for us,
Yeah.
right? Like, we never really were involved in organ donation of any kind. We knew one person that needed a liver right before Tayzli died. But that was really our only, like, insight to
Yeah.
it. So we didn't know what that world really was. Like, we knew about it, but we didn't have any feelings about it, you know?
Yeah.
So when people said that she changed their lives or their opinion on being an organ donor because she was a hero, they wanted to do the same thing and have those conversations with their kids. It was like, wow, like, Tayzli is changing the world.
Yeah.
Like, she is a hero, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they were able to, I think last year or the year before, put a plaque up at our driver's license division. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Oh,
She
I've
has-
been there for a while.
Yeah, when you go renew your license, they have a big plaque about Tayzli, and we got to
Awesome.
go speak there and unveil it. And now,
That's
time someone goes in there, they get to see our little girl,
Yeah.
right? And maybe they'll say, hey, like, yeah, she's an organ donor, I can too, you know?
Yeah.
And so it just feels like now that I'm working for that company, a big win. Because if I
Yeah.
can change the mind of somebody else to just, I want them to do it for themselves, but
Yeah.
also just like be inspired by my daughter if they choose to be. Like, it feels amazing.
Yeah.
So I love it.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
That's what I do.
That's super
awesome.
cool. Well, you guys are amazing. Yeah, just thank you for coming, being vulnerable, sharing your story. You know, like we talked about before we push record, the purpose of this podcast is to talk about reaching our peak potential, right? And we do that through the G4 journey, through great grace, growth, and gratitude. And you guys touched on every single one of those things. And so we, you know, maybe 5 people, maybe 10 people will listen to this podcast, who knows? But if nobody listens to it, I have come out of it better. You guys are awesome. And so just, yeah, thanks for joining the Peak Potential Pursuit podcast and letting us learn from your guys' G4 journey and teaching us to be TayTay Tough.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime we can talk about Tay, we're there. So
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to the Peak Potential Pursuit podcast, where we have been inspired by another G4 journey. Join us next time as we continue to explore stories that unlock our peak potential. If you or someone you know would like to share your G4 journey, we would love to learn and grow from these experiences. Please contact us through Instagram at peak_potential_pursuit or email us at the3pg4@gmail.com.